So, yeah, go ahead and grab your space, get a pillow. I was using these for something else. Practice today is going to be very inward focused. I'm going to work towards a couple of folds and such. Kind of back relaxing. So kind of the idea. I was just talking with a friend of mine the other day about trying to process our emotions. And I was kind of coming at this from like realizing I've kind of been developing feelings for another friend, and dealing with that is really hard for me because I hate dealing with feelings and I hate getting really intimate about stuff, all of the stuff that I say all the time. And then I was trying to process this experience, and I realized that one of my biggest barriers for me in processing my feelings is trying to apply words to them. Because once I have the words come with these definitions, and the definitions and the words come with all of these stories that evolve in our societal expectations or our personal experiences and how that works into our expectations. So I was like, shoot, maybe a better way to try to process the way that I feel is to be in those feelings and to be more in a somatic sensory awareness of those feelings, and trying not to apply those labels and definitions and all of that extra layering stuff onto it. And I really thought that I was onto something with this. And then I was talking with the friend that I have these like meta mindfulness discussions with, and he's like, I don't know, man, like my big thing with emotions is coming to anger and frustration. Those are the emotions that I have a hard time with, and what helps me is to use language to get through that, to use words, to apply a logical process and a plan of action. So I think it really varies whether it's more reasonable to have a more somatic or sensory approach to our experiences, or a language and wordy approach to our experiences based on what we're dealing with and what our best tools are to deal with our circumstances. Goes back to that concept of there being many paths, as we know, but there is still this one yoga. There is still this one effort and one direction that we want to move in, is to become connected with ourselves, to become connected with this moment and with this experience. I'm gonna pop up that, just be real quick. Okay. So moving into our practice today, I'm going to offer more of that somatic sensory kind of thing, but if it seems like it's really just not connecting for you, then perhaps trying to find more of the words to go into it and see if that makes more sense, because it's always this padhyaya, right? This continuous self-discovery, this continuous examination. So we'll start with, oh, actually, we're going to do a somatic exercise. That was the whole reason I was talking about this. Go ahead and get someplace really comfortable. So if sitting the way that you're sitting, if you need to cross your legs, go ahead and lay against the couch. Lay yourself down on the floor. We won't be here super long, but we're going to spend a little bit of time before we get a little bit deeper into practice, just kind of examining the body. So if it's comfortable for you to close your eyes, or just find something easy to look at, the floor or the ceiling. I'm going to move through your body and see what part of your body is speaking to you. And I say make sure that it's a comfortable seat, because a lot of times sitting like this, you might even feel some tension in the lower back, and there's probably many things that the lower back means, but maybe there's something else that's going on in your body, somewhere else that calls your attention. And take a moment to check in with that. often mention that I have a space right behind my left shoulder blade. That's an emotional center that often it comes up for me when I'm not tuning into these things. So that's always like my space. Like, what is it like back there when my body's calling to me, when it's asking for something? So if anything does connect with you in a word association or in a sensory association with this spot in your body, and just sitting with that for a moment, maybe you set an intention that this practice can be maybe considerate of that space in your body or considerate of that sensory experience, word pattern that comes up. Maybe it's just that you would like to take extra space and time to breathe into that place in your body today. Or maybe you find more power in that place in your body today. And then if you have moved into a different way of being, if you've been laying down on the floor, maybe starting to move yourself up towards the seat, take your time doing so. If you're sitting back against a couch or a chair or whatever, what have you, you can absolutely remain there. We'll start to come into a place where we can get started with that face brushing. So index finger and thumb together, coming to the center of your forehead. Just take a few brushes out towards your temples. And then brushing the cheekbones out to the temples. Tracing that bottom edge of your face. And then going from the sides of the nose down to your chin. Bringing your fingertips underneath and behind your ears. As you lift up from that bony spot behind your ears, seeing if perhaps there are any sensations or textures, or maybe they are words that come up. What does this feel like? This lengthening of the spine in this way. And resting your hands down in your lap, keeping that lift in your spine if you're able to keep up from that space behind your ears. Take a few deep breaths in and out through your nose. Examining here to the texture. Maybe there's a taste or a sound. Sometimes we have this color association to certain experiences. Some of us do. Next time you breathe in, take the inhale a little bit more full through the nose and exhale through your mouth. Again, like that. For 3 ohms. Start to open your eyes. We're going to come into Swan Pose as our first shape. So if you've been sitting up on anything, slide that away. I'll mirror you here. We're going to do a couple of poses in a row. So starting with your right shin, maybe you line up in your mat space so this front shin is parallel, and then slide this one back as much as is reasonably comfortable to you. Don't worry about how far it gets back. You want to be able to come forward over the shin, and since it's probably the first stretch that you've done in this practice, if not already today, just notice that it's going to have maybe not as much space as it would a half hour or so from now into practice. So observe this. Okay, what does it feel like? What things come up here? And if I use words about the way this feels, does that seem limiting or start to assign itself into good or bad? Or do the words make sense to me? Can I be detached from the words? Or maybe do I focus on what's the texture, what's the experience, what's the sensation? Or of course you just sit there quietly breathing and feeling the stretch happen. And if you have a little bit more space after a bit and you want to go a little bit deeper, by all means. We're going to be here for about 5 more breaths. Just be sure that you're not holding on to any tension, that you have the capacity to release in your back. And sometimes that exhale to soften can make a lot of difference. One more breath out. And start to walk yourself back. And then this back leg, you're going to pull it in so that you have a little bit more of that squared sort of space, still not bringing this foot in too close to the hip. Go ahead and walk your hands back, coming into deer pose. You can lift this hip up. You can come onto one forearm or both forearms. You want the hip, if anything, to be lifted up. Maybe the heart lifts up too. You can line the head up in such a way that your neck doesn't feel challenged by this, or make an adjustment in your body so your neck doesn't feel challenged. Maybe you come up onto one hand. This kind of puts the spine in a better place. We won't be here nearly as long as we were in the other space. In fact, let's stay just for 2 more breaths. Inhale. Exhale. One more time, deep breath in. Feel some sort of softening as you exhale. And then you're going to take your left hand, cross it over your body. You're going to keep walking over towards the left. And then here's where things get a little bit funky. You're going to slide that left leg back. You're going to come up onto your right shin. And there's some adjustment here coming into this side plank variation. So things got real weird real fast. We went from familiar to never done this transition before, probably. So you're going to stay down on this knee. Notice my foot is behind me, not towards the back foot. But then I want to reach up through this left side of my body. So reaching the left arm up and over, maybe even feeling my hips lift up. I know the altar is kind of hiding my black butt right now, my black pants. So I am shifting that bum upwards. You can see that a little bit, yeah. Big breath in, reach out through those fingertips. Find something to soften as you exhale. One more time, big breath in. Exhale, soften. And then you're going to keep going over towards that left side. So you're going to walk it forward. You can stand fingertips. Turn your left toes up. And then see if you can lift your heart a little bit further forward. Oh, my inner thighs. So even if you can go down a lot, you might stay up here instead, lifting your heart up and lifting these toes. Big breath in. Big breath out. And then you're gonna walk your hands back. You're gonna sit down on your bum and keep turning over towards the side. You'll have this foot on the inside, this leg out and forward, and then come down into a fold. Might wiggle into your hips. We're going to do this again later on in practice. This is a little bit more of the exploratory, examining Janu Sirsasana, the test of the one-legged forward fold, like, all right, body, how's it going today? So just one more breath out, softening as you do. Come on up. Last thing, we're gonna bring the legs in. Just hold on to your knees, lift your heart up. Gonna hold on behind your knees here. Take your right arm open, little twist. Exhale. And then other side. Bring that right arm in, turn the left arm open. Big breath in. Big breath out. And then come back to the center. And then we'll do all that on the other side. So we're gonna set up for Swan Pose. So I've got the shin parallel and then sliding the shin back. And then you want to try to bring your torso out over this left leg. And for me, it feels more open just because we've already been doing other stuff in the hip and kind of getting the body moving. And you might notice that. You might feel like this one's the tight one. I'm just being there through that experience. We are focusing on a lot of softening in this practice, a lot of turning inwards, and sometimes the turning inwards can be tense for the back, like we really just like really crunch. Can you let your back body soften and allow you to move forward? We've got a couple more breaths here, noticing if you've got any more space to move into or if you need to back off a little bit if too much sensation came up. We'll do about 5 more breaths. One more exhale. Starting to walk it up, you'll take your back leg, tuck it up and forward so you've got more of the squared space, and then drawing the hands back. Let your right knee stay down. Maybe the right hip lifts up though to increase the stretch on the front of your thigh. Maybe you're down on one or both forearms. None of it being necessary to do the whatever variation of the pose you think might be more advanced, or maybe the one that you did last time, but simply being where it's right to be at this moment in this practice today. One more breath in. Big breath out. And then taking your right hand, cross it over. Here's where all that really big shift starts to happen. So you're gonna slide that right leg back more. You gotta tuck it in, come up onto the shin. We're adjusting that foot to be behind, trying to somewhat stack the hips. I'm on fingertips here, just giving my wrist a little bit of space, and then reaching the right arm up and over. So it's this variation of side plank where we're reaching up through that side space, right? So kind of taking this hip and lifting it up in the air. And taking these bottom ribs and lifting them up into the air to get more space on this top side of the body. Reaching the ears out of the spine. One more big breath in. And as you exhale, we're going to curl it down, walk it forward. So you'll come to face. It's kind of like table pose, but you have the one leg out. And then you're going to rotate that leg so the toes face up, and then start to reach the heart forward. Rib cage reaching away from the hips, just finding a little bit more length in the spine, perhaps. One more breath in. Soften with your exhale, and then you're going to start to walk it back. And you're going to have to shift down onto your hip. Moving this leg out of the way, so you've now got your right leg out in front of you. Wiggle around or adjust the flesh, coming into a fold that's just as soft as you can manage. Not as deep as you can manage, but rather as soft as you can manage. And just take this time to turn into yourself. One more exhale. And then start to come on up. And send both legs out. You might have to scooch so you've got some space back behind you. And we'll lower all the way down onto our bellies and really try to soften inwards as you do that. So yes, there's a little bit of core connection here, but can you relax the back and really let the body round all the way down onto the floor? And then when you arrive, tucking your knees up into your chest, a little hug and a rock around. And widening your knees, coming into happy baby, holding onto your shins or onto your toes, your feet, wherever the place is that you like to grab them. And this outside of the foot space is generally advisable. I like the toes. I feel like my feet are freer there. Big breath in. Find something to relax as you exhale. Release the feet. You're going to take the left foot, drop it down, slide it out as much as you can. It doesn't need to be straight. You could stop maybe a little bit bent. And then you're going to guide the right leg across the body into a twist. Take your right arm open. Feel your belly soften. One more breath in. One more breath out. And then coming back to the center and switching sides, taking your left leg in and sliding your right leg out, maybe leaving it a lot more bent. And then the left leg comes across and the left arm opens up. One more round of breath. Then coming back to the center and taking both legs, drawing them in and holding back behind your knees. You're going to rock up and down through the spine a couple times and then try to come up to boat pose. So you might have the heels down or you might have the heels up. And then this is going to be weird. You want to try to roll back down onto your back. So rather than just kind of flopping, kind of roll a little bit and then try to rock yourself up. So the flop is just to kind of like hinge back down, just like a thud, yeah? You want to have that fluidity in the spine. So we roll up and there's that little crunch in the belly that gets us up there. And then crunch the belly, roll it back down. And see if you can do it 2 more times or decide that you're done. That's okay too. There's that little tuck of the belly. And you kind of have to do a half another one to get all the way back up. And then we're gonna come onto our knees again. If you do have blocks and you wanna put them underneath your hands, you can do that. I'll show how we might be able to get around that idea as well. So we're gonna start right foot forward. You can have a block underneath your left hand or not, and take the right arm up in the air. Just take your right leg and curl it back. Big breath in, reach the heart up to the hands, exhale, maybe relax that hip back a little bit more. And then you're gonna take the right hand down, you're gonna be on the inside of your leg, and I want you to wiggle this foot out, and then wiggle your foot forward. And then we're just gonna extend the leg, don't worry about getting it straighter. Now, if you do have your hands up on blocks and you can get the leg totally straight and then curl inwards, that's good. You've got a more open hamstring today, perhaps. I just want you to take your hips back, legs a little bit longer. And then instead of trying to reach your spine out as we often do, can you relax your spine and then relax this hip back? So what it might look like with a straighter leg is to soften in like so. Yeah. So your leg might be more like this, and your body might be further up, and you're just greeting the body where it's at. This is probably the most intense stretching we'll have here. Just see if you can relax that right hip down and back a tiny bit more, maybe. And then you're going to start pulling that right leg back next to your left. And then taking the left foot forward and the left arm up in the air. You might be up on the fingertips or have your hand on a block here, reaching the left arm up in the air. Relax that left hip back. Reach from the heart up through both hands. Big breath in. Big breath out. And then taking the hands down on the inside of the leg, so you did have that leg a little bit wide, and then you're going to move the foot out wider and further forward. And then you're going to start to pull the hips back. Don't worry about getting the leg straight. If it does, great. If it doesn't, also great, because that's exactly where you're at right now. But we want to think more than the leg getting straight, can I soften my body down? And then if I notice my outer left hip is kind of drifting out to the side, can I rest that outer left hip back? One more exhale. And then starting to pull that left leg back. Just come down to laying on your belly. Make a pillow for your head with your hands. Wiggle your hips a bit side to side. We'll come up into Shalabhasana, locust pose, with or without the bind. It'll all be up to you. You can reach your arms back or hold on to your hands. Let's reach the hands back, lift the legs, hover them, even just slightly, not even the biggest back bend, but can you make it the longest locust pose you could imagine at this point? One more breath in. Exhale, softening, and then bring your hands underneath your shoulders. You'll stay in down dog for maybe a couple of breaths with me, or maybe just one breath, or maybe just come straight to a forward fold. So that'll be the place we go to next. You're able to be in downward dog for a moment, letting the backs of the legs extend. So the tailbone floats up and the heels drop down and the underbutt unhinges and the head relaxes. And maybe you kind of tuck this belly a little bit to see if you can release the back. And then extend the tailbone a bit more. Big breath in. Big loud sigh. And then that forward fold. Feet and hands coming closer towards each other. Perhaps the hands are up on your shin instead of lower down. Find something to soften, bend your knees a little bit more, and keep the knees bent as you roll up through the spine. Coming to standing. We're gonna come into warrior one. So right leg, yes, right leg forward. And then arms back behind you. Do a little bit of chest opening here. Haven't done a lot today. Need to get a little in. I want you to bend your elbows. So kind of like your elbows are being pulled back. Exhale, soften your collarbones. And then inhale, straighten the arms. Exhale, bend the elbows, soften your collarbones. Inhale, straighten the arms. Heart goes forward a little more. Exhale, bend. One more time. Inhale. Exhale. Bring the heart, hands to heart, lean forward. See if you can step up to a little bit of a chair pose. You can take a couple of steps getting up there, 2 feet, and then let your exhale out and stand up. And then switching sides, coming to warrior one on the other side. And we're going to leave the arms down and do that little bit of heart expanding exercise. So I was like, you're having somebody kind of pull you or puppet your elbows back as far as possible, as far as your shoulders are okay with, still keeping good alignment in the front leg. Exhale, relax your collarbones. Inhale, extend the arms back. Exhale, bend, relax your collarbones. Inhale, extend the arms back. Exhale, relax. Inhale, extend. And then release, hands forward, heart forward, leaning forward and coming up into chair pose. Adjusting when you need to when you get there, and then let the air out. And stand it on up. From here, we'll go wide in the legs. So we're going to come into triangle pose. I've got those back toes turned up, right toes are over. Do a couple of shifts in your hips. So you don't have to be big, ratcheting the hips around thing, which is kind of a little bump around. Just feeling that resting down, resting forward, pulling up and back through this thigh, and then take the arm down. And what you might do is just leave the hand on your hip and feel your elbow pull back. It's different. So back towards the back of your mat or towards your back foot. So if I pull it back here, you can create some tension in the shoulder, even if it's, yes, very opening to the chest. Can you still open the chest, reaching the elbow back? Just been examining that lately. Take it or leave it as per always and forever. One more exhale. Draw your belly in. We're going to lift it back up. And start to switch your feet. And the elbow back, I do mean it's not going back there, it's going there. Like that might be where the focus is. So do a couple of little shifts with your hips. And then shift it. This top hip slightly over, coming down. You can have this arm up if that's working with you, if you like that space, but maybe with this elbow down, you reach it back. Ooh. Feels very balanced in the chest space there, very balanced in the heart. One more exhale. Draw your belly in, lifting you all the way up. We're going to turn all 10 toes to face forward and then come into the yummiest prasarita lower bend. And we're just going to come on down, rest the body, bend the knees as much as you need. You might have to bring those feet a little bit wider. You might have your hands up on something or on your shins. Just let everything be soft, like cascading waterfall down towards the floor, letting everything soften. One more exhale. A little bend in the knees, bring your hands to your hips, start to lift yourself up. We're going to come, what am I going to do? I'm going to do it this way. So I'm going to show, pick a side. I'm going to show from the back a little bit here. So take one leg forward, the other leg back. You want to have more of the warrior one kind of spacing where you've got those train track legs. And then your front hip, you're going to rest it back a little bit. And you can bend this knee if that's where you need to be right now. You're just going to come down. Maybe your hands are on your shin or on your thigh. Maybe your hands are on your shin. If your hands are on your shin, keep a little bend into your legs so you're not pressing back against your knee joint. Try to stand on your feet, relax your back. And maybe you're down lower. You're finding a place where your back is able to relax. I know it's hard to relax here, so just give one more exhale. And then you're going to start to lift yourself back up. We're going to have to shift over towards the long open side of our mat. So you're going to turn over. I'm facing away from you. All 10 toes face that long side of your mat. I adjusted so the legs are in line. You're going to come into a forward fold and you're going to take it over that same leg you were just going over. So you're going to bring both hands over to the shin or to your foot, wherever they were. And then you might bend both legs a tiny bit and allow your back to soften towards this leg. Think of your hips getting nice and wide. One more exhale. And start to bring yourself back to the center as you lift yourself up. And then the last shape in this series, we're going to work towards a revolve triangle. So you're going to turn those front toes forward. You're going to hop the foot out a little bit. So same shape we were just in when we were folding over this leg. We're going to do a little bit differently. Now try to keep legs straight. Keep pulling this front hip back. You're going to go long spine over. You're either going to take the hand down to your thigh or to your shin. It won't be here super long, but can you soften the belly and reach this elbow back towards the back foot to revolve the spine? And soften your belly. Strong feet, relax back, maybe even turning up the corners of the mouth because you know that we're almost done. Exhale, draw your belly in, stand it up, and then we're going to switch sides. So I'm going to come like so. So you've got the other foot forward. We want to try to square those hips forward. It's okay to bend this leg a little bit, especially this first round, just knowing that it might be a little bit intense on your hamstrings. We want to come forward in such a way that it is soft in the back. Your feet are working really hard to hold you up. Try not to work really hard in your jaw muscles to hold you up. You go as far down as makes sense, as far down as you can find something to rest in. So you might be really far down, and you might not, and it's fine wherever it is. You just want to be with what is. Not with the stories we write ourselves about what is. Exhale. And then start to come on up. And then turn ourselves open to this side. Like that's where like the labels and those definitions come in, right? You're gonna say like my hamstrings feel tight. And then we have all of those like stories that come along with tight hamstrings. And then really it's just, we can't be limited by that. Let's move into this fold that takes us over that same leg we were just going towards, right? So I have my right leg forward. Now I'm reaching my body over my right leg. Relaxing the back. Gosh, it's even like that story I tell myself about not being good with my feelings. I need to stop telling myself that story. One more exhale. A little bend in the knees, giving yourself some space as you come up. And Revolve Triangle, even like my teacher has always said, I always tell the story that nobody likes this pose and nobody finds this pose to be easy to get into. It's just like, I feel like I'm just starting us all off on the worst foot by bringing that out there. But instead of saying, I don't like this pose, it doesn't work for me, you say, I wonder what's in this pose today. even if it's just a place that you're in for a moment and then you'll be glad to get out of it. I don't know. So setting this up, giving yourself that space. We have that shift in the feet, so we're not standing one in front of the other. And then you're going to keep now the straight leg, and you want to come forward, and we have to take opposite hand to the thigh. Doesn't have to go down very far, but it might. Don't go for like the straightest, strongest spine ever, but can you make it long? And then release maybe this elbow back as you soften your belly. Maybe the inner thigh on this front leg revolves forward, which will help to pull this front hip back. One more exhale. Ooh. And then lifting, standing up. Bring your legs in towards each other. Wiggle things out a little bit. And then last standing shape, again, revolving and rolling things up. We'll take eagle pose. So pick a leg, bring it on top. Squeeze your thighs together, pull your hips back. You might practice having less weight on these toes. You can bring elbows and palms together, opposite arm on top, or hugging instead of wrapping your feathers up. Let those hips rest back. Squeeze those inner thighs together. Squeeze those hips back. Exhale. Unwind all of the things. Come back to the center. Shake it out if it needs shaken. And then moving to the other side. So squeezing the legs back, pulling the hips back, maybe practicing a little bit less pressure of those toes that are there just for balance. And then opposite arm on top, or both arms together, or hugging onto your shoulders. Release the hips back, squeeze the thighs to release the hips back. One more breath in. Deep breath out. Unwind, unwind, come standing. I'm going to move back to the front of our mats, kind of working our way back down onto the floor. Step your feet about hip width apart. Reach the arms up, stay there. Exhale. Inhale, reach up longer. Exhale, soften all the way down. Relax whatever you can. Your knees, your back, your head, your toes. One more breath out. And then stepping back, knees down. Coming into child's pose, knees out wide, body resting forward. Big breath in. Let those hips get heavy and relax back. Exhale. One more time, breathe in. Exhale, release it. And then looking up, lifting up, and coming down to take a seat. If you have maybe a pillow that you often sit on, or if you ever feel like your hips or your hamstrings are not the loosest, if folds are not your favorite thing ever, having that sitting up just a little bit on the hips can be quite nice. I take a kind of wider Janushirasana, so not having the body completely squared over this leg, giving a little bit more room in the pelvis, hopefully a little bit more room in the back. Keep your toes up a bit, not like crazy strong staff pose, but lifted. And then taking your body forward over that leg. With like maybe 20% energy, can you feel this inner thigh lift upwards? And maybe that rotates the leg just a tiny bit, not a lot, to allow a little bit more space in the back. And then you come in and you find whatever softness is available to you there, or whatever sensations are available to you there. You might be aware of some differences between this one and the first one we did, or this one and one that you did last week. allowing yourself to scan and be present in this experience. One more full round of breath. And then coming up. And we'll switch to the other side. It's like forward, a little bit more open here. The toes are more or less up. And when I say lift this inner thigh, I don't mean lift as that the leg rotates that much. I mean lift it so like this upper thigh can be rotated like that much. See? And then you're coming forward. Letting things soften. Being there with whatever it is. One more round of breath. And then starting to come up. And then we're going to start shifting onto our backs. So when you come down, try to come down, feet on the floor, body down. Even reach your arms over your head. You might need to shift around a little bit here. If you really need to bring knees into your chest for a moment or shift around in any other way, please do. But eventually you're meeting here, arms flopped open. Are going to take bridge pose as we wrap up practice. Hopefully the back is soft and relaxed from all of these folds. You're going to bring the heels in close by your hips, arms down by your sides, snuggle the shoulders underneath. Doesn't need to be the biggest one. Make it a full one in your body right now, pressing the feet, maybe wiggling shoulders under more, maybe holding hands. All four corners of those feet press down, reaching the knees forward, allowing the heart to open up towards your nostrils. Try that softening of your throat to see if there's any more space open in the chest. And then relaxing your shoulders and allowing the body to rest down towards the mat once more. From here, then drawing those knees up into your chest, rocking around however the body calls to you. And then nice long twists to wrap up practice. Open the arms, let the knees fall over in one direction. Notice if there's any wiggling that you can do to release the rib cage in its twist, maybe realigning the legs in some way. When you find a space where you can settle and simply be there with your breath and maybe scanning and observing the senses in this experience, however you respond to it. Two more breaths. And then starting to work your twist over towards the other side. Taking all of those little adjustments, checking out the body. Does anything need to be shifted or adjusted slightly? And then once I'm in that sweet space, letting my body feel sweet there or feel whatever it feels there. Take another deep breath in. Soften with your exhale. Do that once more. Start to return back to center, resting the feet down, allowing yourself to come into neutral. Following anything else that the body is asking for, if there is any other pose or movement. But when you're ready, starting to settle, either resting in this constructive rest space or coming to a seated meditation, laying on one side or sprawled out into corpse pose. Maybe checking in again with whatever that space was in your body that was speaking to you earlier, just noting if the conversation is going a little bit differently, whether it's a sensory conversation or a texture or word conversation. Not with judgment, it doesn't have to be different, just noticing what's there, checking in again. Big breath in, big breath out, and rest well. to come back to your body. As you tune in, notice the way that you communicate with yourself, the things that come up. Are there any areas that feel a specific way, or how your body explains those sensations? When you're ready, roll yourself over to one side, taking this moment to pause and turn inwards. In gratitude for practice and in gratitude for being able to share this practice. When you're ready, coming up into your own version of a comfortable seat. Hands gathered at your heart. Sealing practice with an Om. Deep breath in. Bowing down to the love and light inside of each of our hearts. Namaste. Kindness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the difference between the swan and the pigeon?
A swan is on your hip. So from the front, it looks like this.
Okay.
And it's designed as a yin shape so that you can stay here for a long amount of time, because you're not like hanging in the balance. Like you don't really have to put any effort or strength into being in this place. Whereas, excuse me, madam, pigeon being here.
Up. Okay, both hips are up.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So this is still a very restful pose, but it can be very tender on the joints if held for a really long time. So this is, we have the yang shapes where we may like hold and be in the muscles and might involve some strength, whereas the yin shapes is just like.
Okay.
Just call me a pigeon.
Thank you.
Take care. See you next week.
Bye, everybody. Take care. Send me that link, Ruth, so I can put it in the email for the.
I just have to finish it. I hope to do that today or tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you.